Competition over water, that's what's fueling tensions between neighbors Iran and Afghanistan, where recent skirmishes along their border left 3 soldiers dead. The clashes broke out last week over water rights from the Helmand River, a major source of water for both countries. The two signed a water treaty in 1973, but Tehran accuses the Taliban of violating the deal. Iran's President Raisi called on Afghanistan to honor its water rights, warning that the Taliban should take his words seriously. The fighting broke out along Afghanistan's southwestern border, where the Helmand River flows into eastern Iran. Taliban officials announced that it will continue the construction and rebuilding of dams on the Helmand River. They'll also continue with a new dam in neighboring Farah province with the help of Turkish and German companies. Iran has opposed these hydroelectric projects, saying they impact water flows into Sistan-Baluchistan province, the country's most drought-stricken area. Although calm has returned to their border, both sides are still without a lasting agreement on how to properly allocate water supplies. And to further discuss the water dispute between Iran and Afghanistan, joining me now from Hamburg, Germany, is Sarah Bozobandi. She is a research fellow at the German Institute for Global and Area Studies. And from Uppsala, Sweden, Hashmat Sadat. He is a water resources specialist. A warm welcome to you both, and thanks for joining me on Straight Talk. So, Sarah, what's the latest situation on the Afghanistan-Iran border, and how tense is it 1 week after clashes left 3 soldiers dead?
Well, the water dispute between Iran and Afghanistan is not new. It has been ongoing for 50 years. That's why at the time of Zahir Shah and the last monarch of Iran, there was a water agreement between the two countries to address some of these difficulties. Of course, there are a lot of uncertainties about that agreement, and that is because, there is a terminology defined in that agreement that is required Afghanistan to share a certain percentage of the water resources in every normal water year. So what normal water year means to each side of the border might be the source of dispute, which has been the case this time around. Also, holding water as a weapon against Iran is not new, and it's not unique to the Taliban. Ashraf Ghani also had mentioned that before, that Iran should be ready to exchange water for oil with Afghanistan. So the dispute is not new, but the way that it has broken out and led to this open conflict at the border is quite new, and it's quite worrying.
So, Hashmat, is the Afghan government in violation for restricting the flow of water to Iran's eastern regions? I mean, which country is not adhering to the 1973 treaty?
Thank you so much. From technical point of view, I don't think that the Taliban intentionally restricting the flow. So there are many other factors behind to take into account. For example, lack of proper water governance and water resource management at both sides. Climatic factors is the biggest challenge, and also demography and increased water demand are the main factors that I will say physical and economic water scarcity is behind this accusation.
So, Sarah, is this water dispute the sole reason for escalating tensions? Are there any other underlying reasons behind this?
Well, despite the fact that the Iranian regime somehow welcomed the takeover of the Taliban after the U.S. withdrawal, and former Foreign Minister Zarif called them the authentic regional movements, which created a lot of dispute in social and broadcast media amongst the Persian speakers that believe that this should not be the way that the Taliban should be addressed, but that's a different issue. But the way that the Iranian regime have welcomed Taliban and accepted the Taliban was not really a background for these kind of disputes. So it was expected that the relations would remain relatively smooth, and cooperation when it needed will continue. And there have been a lot of cooperations, and there needs to be lots of cooperation. So it is quite unprecedented. What has prompted it is beyond my ability to analyze, because there could be external factors, there could be other regional and global players players behind this and agitation of the Afghan government in this response. I have no idea. I have no access to information, but all I can say is that it's quite unprecedented. And despite the fact that water issue is not a new a problem between the two countries, the way that it exploded is quite unprecedented.
So, Hashmat, the Kajaki Dam, which lies at the center of this dispute, was first built by the U.S. in the 1950s, but has never become fully operational due to the Iranian opposition. So, what's next? Do you think the Afghan government will press ahead?
I don't think so that it's the construction halted, the Kajaki Dam construction halted due to the Iranian opposition, because Iran was well aware of the Kajaki Dam and its storage capacity while negotiating the treaty in 1973. So the both countries reached to an agreement. So these recent construction activities are part of the previous plan from 1951. So after Kamal Khan Dam, so recently Taliban resumed construction of the Bakhshabad Dam at the Hariri River Basin, which is another controversial basin between Afghanistan, Iran, and Turkmenistan. So it's normal that any development intervention in the sheer basin by the upstream countries cause anxiety to the downstream riparian states. So Afghanistan is a self-sufficient water country just in theory, but in practice, it has one of the lowest level of water storage capacity in the world. So therefore, Afghanistan try and needs to increase its water storage capacity by dam development, which could be a source of contention and cause anxiety to Iran and Turkmenistan in both river basins.
So, Sarah, the Taliban seems adamant in safeguarding its rights stemming from the 1973 agreement. Has the Taliban become more emboldened by opening fire on Iranian guards?
Yes, I think the violence on the border was uncalled for. Some of the messages, recorded video footages that are being distributed amongst the Persian social media users, showing that Taliban commanders calling for the occupation of Tehran or holding symbolic Muslim prayer sessions at the border within Iranian territory. These are uncalled for, and these are unnecessary, and these are the source of agitation. Of course, in any dispute, there's going to be a lot of hyped talks, and the discourse might not necessarily reflect the intention of the policymakers. But definitely, these are new movements, these are new gestures that we witness towards Iran by the Taliban.
So, Hashmat, as we know, Afghanistan is dependent on Iran in terms of electricity imports. Could current tensions put Afghanistan's electricity supply at risk? And is it possible that Iran retaliates by shutting off exports?
No, of course, if the diplomatic relation get worse between the countries, definitely there will be a serious impact on export and import of goods, services, and business partnership. So Afghanistan current power demand is about 5,000 megawatt around, and just around 670 megawatt is generated domestically, and the rest importing from the neighboring countries, including Iran, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, and Turkmenistan. So there is, for example, construction of the Khushtepa irrigation canal in the north of Afghanistan in the Amu River Basin, which is another controversial river basin for Afghanistan with the Central Asian countries, is matter of debate for Uzbekistan, which in last winter there was some interruption of power supply from Uzbekistan to Kabul. However, the authorities in media reflected this as a matter of financial issue, but in such as unilateral development by upstream countries definitely cause anxiety to the downstream countries. So sheer water courses and actually, put the supply electricity at risk.
So, Sarah, have the recent clashes had any impact on the Taliban's efforts to gain international recognition?
Well, the water dispute is something that has had international recognition in the Middle East, North Africa, broader region. This time we're witnessing this dispute. The next will be in between two other countries. We have Iraq, Iran, Turkey, Syria, a lot of shared water resources, a lot of finger pointing at water hegemonic strategies of upstream countries. So there is a lot of global attention. There is a lot of international attention, a lot of academic capacities and policy recommendation capacities being put towards understanding these issues and put towards giving in timely, notice to the policymakers. And of course, unfortunately, time and again, the policymakers have failed to address these issues, have failed to find sustainable, all-inclusive solutions that would not end up in this situation. So I think water in general is a topic that is definitely going to gain more global attention in that part of the world.
Hashmet, you and Sarah mentioned several regional countries will be affected by this water dispute. So which tools should be employed to solve this problem? I mean, should there be a joint mechanism in place and active communication lines between the two countries, or other players should step in?
Yeah, actually, this is very important to, in my opinion, for active implementation of the treaty. 1973 treaty, it's extremely necessary to establish a commission as stated in the article number 8 of the treaty, so that each country should appoint their commissioner and deputy commissioner and set up their role and responsibility based on the protocol number 1 as an annex to the treaty. So they should actively communicate and implement the treaty provision based on the scientific standpoints, which for sure will play an important role in the diplomatic relation of the both countries. And also there is required, to promote water diplomacy in building knowledge, database in modeling, hydrological analysis, institutionalize the processes in building political will between the countries. In case of any differences or misinterpretation, so this giant body try to solve it. If not, then they could engage a third-party mediation. But if they could not, then they submit the arbitration pursuant to positive provision protocol number 2.
All right, Hashmet and Sarah, unfortunately, we are out of time. Thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk.